Alright, so rewriting. You hate doing it, I hate doing it, so why do it at all? Like what if you hate doing this so much, then why not just write a rough draft and then just throw it out into the world, or edit it extensively and then throw it out into the world? I'm here to tell you not to do that. Because in my opinion, and also in a lot of writers' opinions, but this is just about me, it's a terrible idea. If you do this, you are effectively signing away your book as and putting putting a big old not as good as it could have been stamp on it. Because no matter how much you edit your book, your rough draft, no matter how much you think you've got it, I can guarantee you there is a lot of stuff that you probably missed and just either didn't see or saw it and was like, that's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to change that now. Because when you read it and when you write it, right, and when you're rewriting stuff, what you've already seen, it's different. It does different things to you, like in your brain. Well, in my brain anyway. So when I edit something, a lot of the time, I'm not necessarily going to be like, okay, I'm not necessarily going to be reading it line for line. I know a lot of people do that, and I do try to do that as much as possible, but some of the time, I just can't. I just don't have the energy, don't have the attention span, whatever it is, and I don't read it, and I just like skim a few sentences and go, that's fine, that reads fine. But when you're rewriting, you have to write down the same thing again. Hopefully, if it's as good as you think it is, then you'd just be rewriting the same thing again. But every time I do this, not for every single sentence, but for a lot of them, I see a very common occurrence. I see that, oh, that's actually worded kind of weird. How about I change that to make it sound like this instead? And that actually makes it makes the book just read a lot better, or the story or whatever, just read a lot better. And that's just me. I do spend a lot of time on the rough draft though, because I just feel that you need to. But I don't think you should spend too much time on the rough draft, and I will do another video on this. But the long and short of it is, if you spend too long on a rough draft, you're gonna be overthinking everything. You're gonna be underthinking anything. Honestly, it depends on the writer, and it depends on the mindset. Because mindset's about writing change as time goes on, blah blah blah. But in terms of rewriting, to me, it's always been a very important thing to do. And I didn't always do it. And I'm mad that I didn't always do it. Because I used to, as a lot of people do, just write one draft, edit it a little bit, then just leave it. And go like, this is done. And I even released a book like this way once, which you can't find anymore. Don't try and find it. Because it's crap. So yeah, it just the book in question is called Monochrome, by the way. I have since adapted it into a screenplay, which you can buy on my Amazon, but I don't really advertise it because I don't think it's as good as my novellas or my anthologies. But the main issue that had was I wrote the rough draft, I edited it maybe a little bit like a month later, but besides that, I left it. Didn't do anything else to it. I just left it. And like, I know rewriting's a pain in the ass. It's honestly my least favorite part of writing. I fucking hate it so much. But that's not the point. If you want to actually release your books so that people will read them, you should write more than one draft. I'd say at least two. Ideally 3 or 4. Really, it depends. I personally, at the moment, I only really write 2 drafts per book. Because of the length of them, I don't really feel like writing 3 is necessarily worth it. But when I go When I do eventually write full novels, I will do at least 3. But yeah, it's just honestly the best piece of advice I ever got was to write more than one draft. Like the best piece of advice in terms of writing that I have ever gotten was a Tumblr post that I don't know the original source. The original source. I don't know who said it. I just know that they said that people asked. They were an established author, by the way, and they were like, I don't remember the author though, but they said that the one, the biggest piece of writing advice I can give you, and you're not gonna like it, is to rewrite stuff. Like, don't focus too much on editing. Do focus on editing, but not as much as on rewriting, because rewriting is a lot more important. And when I first read that, I was like, oh no, fuck off. I'm not rewriting the whole thing. That's a pain in the ass. But then when I was writing Ruby Rain, the first book that you can actually buy of mine, I did rewrite it because when I gave it to my mum to proofread, she was like, there are a load of errors with this. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I should rewrite it. So I did. And it turned out a lot better. And then I edited it, and etc., etc. But my point is that you should focus with the rough draft. You should only ever really focus, when you're writing it at least, you should only ever really focus on getting the story down for you. You should be the only one that sees the rough draft. If other people are seeing the rough draft, then in my opinion, you've made a big mistake, and that's a big problem. And it's going to get bad reviews, and people aren't going to like it, and whatever. But anyway, like I said, this is just my opinion. So I'm now going to go over to the writing community on Twitter because I asked them, how many drafts of a work in progress do you write before you publish it? And only 17% said that they only wrote one singular draft. 4% said they wrote 2, so I'm a pretty big minority apparently. 17% said they wrote 3, but a whopping 63% of people in the writing community said that they wrote 4 or more drafts for their short stories, their novels, their novellas, their poetry anthologies, what have you, or their screenplays. And yeah, I think the pretty big takeaway here is that if you want to sell and if you want your book to be as good as you possibly can, you should write as many drafts as you physically can, or as is possible for you at the time. I only really write 2 at the moment because I'm working with time constraints and I'm trying to release 1 book every year for some godforsaken reason. Don't remember why I chose to do that. But anyway, that's why I think that you should write at least 2 drafts of a book, but ideally more than that. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and right on.